few months ago I built this, Corvus ATX, a Voron 3D printer inspired computer case. I had to cut my own extrusions, drill and tap them, 3D print all the parts so that case could be produced. And now fast forward, you can buy a kit and you can build one for yourself a whole lot easier than I did. It's wild to me that this product exists at all, and we will talk about just how surreal that feeling is. But what better way to highlight the kit than to rehome my daily driver computer, the very machine that did a lot of the design work on this project, into one of these kits. For about 5 years now, my workstation has lived in this Lee & Lee case that for almost 3 of those years, I haven't had a side panel on at all because the GPU is too wide. So it's past time for a change. And of course, if I want to edit this very video you're watching, I need to get this computer built ASAP. So let's get to it. Before we get too deep, I want to thank this video's sponsor, Prusa Research, whose equipment makes projects like this possible, and Mandic Labs 2.0 studio sponsor, PCBWay. More on both of those later. Let's get to the project. When this box from LDO Motors showed up, I just stared at it for a minute. This is a thing I designed that lived in Fusion 360 for days. I printed it, reprinted it, swore at it, and then somebody manufactured it. They put it in a box and shipped it out to the world. Inside are pre-cut and drilled extrusions. I went with their gray anodized finish. I personally really like it. There's hardware sorted and bagged. Everything I had to hunt down and source for myself is here. Even some ball hex drivers for those who don't have them for themselves. They're here in the kit, ready to work with you to build it. You know, Donald Sayers laid the foundation for this project. Frame geometry, skirts, feet, the motherboard mounting. I iterated on top of his work. I built upon it, I broke it down, I changed geometries, fixed a few things, rebuilt my parts, and now here we are with a kit that LDO produced so you can build these things. But here's the thing about building your own design as a kit. You notice everything you got wrong. The first thing that I noticed was the feet. When installing them, I realized that some of the holes were teardropped and some of them weren't. You see, I do teardrops in my designs to improve printability. Round holes become ugly overhangs when they're printed parallel to the build plate. Somehow I just forgot to do half of them on the feet. Then there was the power supply mounts. The screws weren't deep enough for the hardware that I spec'd in the bill of materials that I wrote. I think I meant to go back and address this, but I never did. Then there's the top hat that I designed from scratch. It was missing fillets. There are hundreds of rounded corners on this design, and somehow I missed a little over a dozen of them, I think. When you're staring at CAD for hours on end, things do start to blur together. But now that I can look back on it, it's blatantly obvious. Oh, and the LDO kit uses thicker amplifier feet than I had on hand when I built the prototype. That means the screws that I spec'd are shorter than what needs to be used with the LDO feet. So that's not really a mistake on my part or their part. It's just something we're gonna have to update in future iterations of the kit. Between noticing these things and wanting the files online to be right, not just good enough for now, I went from version 5 to version 10 of this project. Every small fix, I would update the CAD and put it out immediately. I was worried somebody would download the files at any given moment and get the wrong parts when I knew there were updates to be made. Could I have waited until I was totally done and just released from version 5 to version 6 with all the updates? Yes, but that's not how my brain works. In the build process, there were a couple of updates I made that I'm just proud of, things I wish I would have thought of initially, but I got there eventually. For the base panel inside, the mounting tabs. Originally, I intended folks to measure these away from the frame and space them just right and then tighten them in. Fiddly and annoying. Now, the new design has wings that stick off of the sides, so you just put a screw into them, slide them against the side extrusion, tighten them in, and they're set the proper distance where they need to be. And they use less material. When it came to the motherboard mounts, they're independent floating pieces, and when I built the prototype, that was a non-issue because I had the motherboard in hand. In this case, I'm transplanting hardware, so I don't exactly know where things are going to line up. I started thinking maybe I could have people measure this, but a tool made more sense. I designed up these super simple spacer pieces that fit into the frame. You can butt the motherboard mounts up against them, tighten them in place, and now they're located where they need to be for an ATX motherboard. Then there's this radiator that I have to deal with. I've been water cooling my computers for decades at this point, and I know I need 2 radiators in this build, but installing this right to the front panel is going to protrude into the internal volume of the computer more than I want. So I designed up this riser, is what I've been calling it. It's a bad name for it. Let me know in the comments if you have a better one. This protrudes the front panel away from the frame, giving more space to fit the radiator and fans in there without clogging up the interior. I'm going to be posting this as a mod to the base case, not part of the base case files, as I'm honestly not in love with the design. It was a band-aid on a problem that I kind of missed in the original design. Hindsight is a heck of a thing when it comes to a project of this scale. With all that, I'm glad I had my pressure print farm on hand for this project. Just like when I was prototyping the original build, all these fixes and revisions required printing and reprinting parts. For a business like mine, having a farm of reliable machines means no waiting around. I can test print multiple parts at once, get the next iteration ready while the last one finishes. I'm never bottlenecked by too few nozzles pushing plastic. Speaking of which, you may have noticed I went with a dark gray base color, light gray internals, and a gold accent color on this build. I'm aiming to match the aesthetics of my new office we built in a recent video. Which brings us to the white sore thumb, the Lee & Lee case that my PC's lived in for 5 years now. It's time to break it down. In the interim, work goes on, so I brought in my 3D printed ITX build bent box as a temporary daily driver. I had every intention of upgrading my workstation while doing this project, thought it would make it more interesting, and I could genuinely use the upgrade. But then the hardware market skyrocketed out of control. To upgrade from this 5950X and 3090 Ti would be prohibitively expensive right now. It just doesn't make sense. That said, I am hitting limits with this hardware. I know it's better than plenty of people have access to, but you have to remember, I constantly have large CAD projects, 6K video edits, 3D printer slicer files, and photo editing open at the same time. But until prices get a little more reasonable, I'm gonna have to make do. As such, I'm gonna take care of what I have. These water blocks have been on here for years at this point, so it's time to strip them down and clean out the gunk on them and put some new thermal paste on. With them cleaned out, fresh paste, these things are ready to get back together, and I can get this hardware into the build. We're gonna build from the base up, so first thing going in is my 1000 watt power supply that's longer than the one I used in the prototype. So I actually ended up having to make extended mounts for larger power supplies like this that are now included with the base files. Then comes cable management. I got some basic braided extension cables off Amazon that are in the hidden tray behind the motherboard, so you're not gonna see any of that mess. Next up comes Watercooling Hardware. For the 360 radiator that's going in the top of the case, I designed this spacer which will allow the fans to more efficiently pull air through the entire radiator core and should reduce noise. To mount to that, I'm going with Noctua Redux fans. I think they'll aesthetically fit and I like their noise performance ratio. They don't come with isolators though, so I printed up some of the TPU ones that I designed back during the bent box build, available on printables. Now it's time to figure out some of the fittings for this build before I get things installed. It's just easier on the bench. Getting proper layout of fittings chosen will really help to inform the bends for the hardline tubing I'm going to be installing. But while I've got free space in this case, it's time to consider LEDs. So in comes the yawl board. This is a WLED controller PCB that I really like. I use it in a ton of projects around the studio. I decided to use this instead of the motherboard controls because I just find it's more customizable and it won't have any load on the computer running RGB software in the background. This came to me via studio sponsor PCBWay. They made up these PCBs for me so I could get these LEDs under control. I have strips going along the front and top edges, as well as one behind the radiator glowing down onto the motherboard. If you're interested in a WLED controller like I have, or other PCB manufacturing, laser cutting, CNC machining, and 3D printing services, check out PCBWay at the link in the description. Thank you to them for supporting Mandic Labs. With that, it's time for hardlines. Fun fact, this is only the second hardline tubing build that I've done, and the first one was the prototype Corvus build. I've always focused on serviceability when it comes to my water cooling projects, but here I feel like aesthetics matter, so I'm going with it. Though I did a lot of hardline tubing work in the past, just not on PCs, on custom cars. When you're building high-end custom cars like I did, stainless lines for fuel, air, brakes, they really can become part of the build and part of the aesthetics. So doing good quality work really matters. I focused on that for years, and that is coming in handy here. It's pretty much the same principles. You measure, maybe make a template bend or two to help you line up where your angles are going to be, mark, bend, test fit, cut to length, and fit them in. And if it doesn't work, you throw that piece away and you start over. You have to accept that that's going to happen. But when it comes together right, it is so worth it. With a loop complete, it's time to fill it up and make sure it doesn't leak. With leak testing complete, it's time to start getting things buttoned up. We got to get the rear panel installed onto the machine. This is a polycarbonate cut panel from LDO, and it has cutouts for a 140mm exhaust fan. I'm using a Noctua industrial fan for good, quiet airflow, and then also a 60mm fan down lower. I'm using a slim Noctua for quieter operation. All of my radiator fans are in an inlet configuration, so airflow is positive pressure and it's going to move nicely across all the hardware inside of here. Then the polycarbonate side panels can go on. On one side, it's just a flat panel enclosing the back for a nice clean finish. On the other side, it's a door to access the hardware. Before we get the bottom panel on, I do need to note, I showed earlier that the LDO kit comes with a PCB for the front buttons and LEDs for power and hard drive status indication. That's a mod that came out after the initial release and is standard in the LDO kit. But we don't have any wiring included with the kit, unfortunately. Getting exact wire lengths for all front panel connectors, I didn't really know how to handle that, so we kind of just didn't. I had to crimp my own cable with JST-XH on one end and then Deutsch connectors on the other so I can pin them to the front panel connections for my board. Let me know in the comments if you have input on a good way to address this for a more universal fit. That out of the way, we can get the bottom panel on. The kit comes with a black bottom panel. I cut my own acrylic one as I want some underglow. This is going to go on here, and cable management would be best described as out of sight, out of mind, I think, in this case. And of course, since I like a clean machine, I designed up some magnetic fan filters that attach to the fan screws for the radiators. They use gyroid infill as their filter material, so I can wash them out later on and just print them. And with that, I'm proud to present to you my LDO Corvus build. A kit anyone can build, and it all started with a prototype, cut and built by hand. It's wild how far things have come. With that, it's time to swap PCs once again. I have to say, after dailying a small form factor build for a little while, I am gonna miss it. Small footprint means a tidy desk, and realistically, most of what I need. but not everything. No 10 gigabit networking, not enough storage, and not enough GPU horsepower. It's definitely a thought about some future project possibilities here though. For now, it's gotta go so we can get Corvus in. While I'm at it, might as well do a little desk refresh. Keychron sent over the Q13 Max keyboard. It's an Alice layout ergonomic design, and I'm pairing it with their M5 vertical mouse. Both are great for long hours that I spend at a desk. I don't love the key switches though, so let me know your favorites in the comments, maybe I'll replace mine. Building this kit revealed a lot of what I got wrong as a designer. Tolerances I missed, details I overlooked, things I should have caught. But it also showed what worked. And now it's out there. People are building these. Seeing makes of this out in the real world is just wild to me. Quite honestly, I wasn't sure I was gonna like this build for myself. I've been using that Lean case for years now, and I'm so used to it. I had my eye on a few other commercial options for a rebuild, but forcing myself to actually build this kit, I like it a lot more than I expected. And it's taking up less desk space than the old case, so while not a small form factor build, I did gain back some valuable real estate. I've also found I'm getting better thermals with this new build, and it's quieter than my previous one too, so I'm thrilled all around. If you're interested in building one of these LDO Corvus kits, they're available from resellers around the world. Here in the US, we've got West 3D and Fabrico stocking them. In the EU, there's 3D Jake, in Australia, Dremk, and more. They'll be listed in the description down below with links to them. Alright folks, I think that's going to wrap it up for this one. I want to thank Pursuit Research for sponsoring this video, PCBWay for sponsoring Mandic Labs 2.0 on the whole, and YouTube members and Patreon patrons for their direct support of this content, production of these projects, these design files we put out there into the world. You really do make these wheels keep on turning. Thank you folks. Get subscribed to ensure your 3D prints don't fail. It's not a guarantee, but it can't hurt. See you in the next one, folks.